You guys, welcome to What a Delight with Chelsea White. Mom, specifically, we waited for you to join. I'm serious, because it was only me watching under Show Me Your Kitty and Matt Krol watching under his account. Hi, Mom. All right, you guys. Well, let's just do this.
Hi, Chelsea.
Well, thank you so much, everyone who's here. And yeah, we got a lot of great feedback last week from the show where we basically just were talking about how we live in a white supremacist society, which it seems a lot of people are shocked about, which is interesting. It's a real reckoning for basic things that are happening in the world for a lot of people, and you know, we're here for you. Oh, my dad's watching too. Okay, great. So everybody's here. The gang's all here. Well, I was going to start off with showing an excuse to show a clip from last week, this week, but I feel like we should see if anyone other than my mom or my dad joins because they already saw it last week. So let's talk about this. First of all, Matt Krol, you were here in lieu of DJ Duck Hunt Demon, who is very, very busy with his hauntings during this time.
Just literally, there's so many evil bastards these days. There's just not enough time for a demon to do. I talked to DJ Duck Hunt Demon maybe 30 seconds tops, like a couple days ago, and I mean, just between the nightmare, there's never been a better time to be a demon.
Sure. It's demon like sweeps month.
So invest in demons. I don't know.
Invest in demons. What's the return
Buy, sell.
on demons? How are they? What's the market rate on demons right now?
I don't know. The demon stock market. Oh wait, no, that's just the regular stock market. I don't know. Hot takes, hot spicy takes. How are the two of you? How are the two of you doing?
We're doing okay. Also, by the way, this is Tash, Neal. I mean, since it's only my mom, my dad watching, I didn't feel the need to introduce anybody because they know us. And this is Miranda Hobbs. Let's get Miranda Hobbs.
Going. Who is Miranda Hobbs?
Here we go. This is Miranda Hobbs. Oh, wait, that's not it. There we go. Oh, you can't really see her. Well, here, Tash, you get. Hold on.
Slack.
Hold on.
It's a blanket.
I need to get you some more slides.
There's
There she is. That little angel.
I don't know if you can see. I don't know if you can see on my screen or not.
Wait, I'm coming back to you.
Back to me.
Let's see. Do you have a little angel there with you?
You can't really see her. She blends.
I can't see her.
There.
Wait.
Zoe.
Oh, I see Zoe. Hi, Zoe.
Yeah, little paw moving.
Zoe. My
I think this is Zoe's first guest spot on What a Delight.
I feel like she's been on one other time now. Oh my gosh, well this is so exciting. Well, thank you. And also I see a couple other people are joining. All right, so first and foremost, yeah, I mean, we're just gonna talk about everything going on in the world. So I feel like, also I felt really weird when I posted this week. Last week I posted without saying the name of the show because it felt a little bit, I mean, nothing going on in the world is delightful right now. So it felt a little bit at odds.
Sure.
Although, unless you...
Actually, well that...
hopefully... you know, the other side of the coin of what's going on, even though some people are showing their treacherous, evil humanity, the other side is that things hopefully maybe are now hopeful and we're at the tipping point finally, right? So that's delightful.
A lot of good people are turning out.
That's right.
Also.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Marco.
But one thing that is, I mean, something that I've been heartened that beyond the enormous outpour of individuals and oddly every aspect of society I interact with, again, I don't expect much from brands, but even they are doing some basic stuff and some more than basic. I am deeply heartened by everything, well, not everything, but all of the positivity that I'm seeing across life, right? But something that I also am, and that's sort of one side of it. But the other side of it is I'm actually very heartened by the amount of people and groups that are also good, cool. Now keep doing this for 6 months. the inevitable, you know, whenever there's something that is difficult or the I don't know how to put it, but the
something that's
the Twitter du
uncomfortable
jour
to
or
face.
whatever.
Is that right? I mean, like when as white
But
people have to admit
we
that we're
tend-
upholding a system that has been completely oppressing an entire part of the human race.
We tend to like show support, flash in the pan, deuces.
Right, exactly.
And I'm very heartened by the amount of people actively saying, no, we're not going to do that.
Exactly. Like here, like, great, keep posting on Instagram and then keep, right. Like making the point that this is not just like post your black square and then have some Crystal Light and rum.
I'm
not saying that I'm drinking Crystal Light and rum. Go on.
One of the things that I did, someone put it in perspective for me, and a lot of times even when you're taught in school about like quote unquote the civil rights movement, it took 10 years.
Right.
Like, the bus boycott started in 1955.
Right.
The Voting Rights Act, I believe, wasn't passed till 65. So you're talking about years.
Right.
For not equal rights, just civil rights.
Right.
Not even
right.
Just stop hosing,
right.
or sicking dogs, or killing people,
right.
which we're still doing. But we just have to really focus as a society. If we all want to feel comfortable and not, avoid this uncomfortability, we can all be happy.
Right. Not let the momentum drop. My dad commented that NASCAR banned the Confederate flag. So there you go.
I never thought
add it to the list of things that we can't even believe weren't already banned, like chokeholds. But speaking of keeping that same energy and not letting the momentum go down, let's a reminder, there's a lot of stuff to celebrate, but then of course one of the things that we're still fighting for, and I want to direct you to some actions you can take, everyone watching, Breonna Taylor, murdered a couple of months ago at this point by 3 police officers in her home. I'm sure everyone knows about the situation by now. I mean, I don't know what you have been doing in your life if you haven't heard Breonna Taylor's name, but I'll let you guys do your own research. I won't take up that time now on what happened to her, but she was murdered by 3 police officers who barged into her home with a no-knock warrant. The suspect, they were in the wrong apartment, basically. There's more to it than that, but that's the gist of it. Those police officers have been reassigned, but they haven't been arrested. They haven't even been let go from the force. But I want to say,
AKA in hiding.
Exactly. But a lot of people, I know there's been a lot of petitions and numbers to call, and I'm sure we've all seen that. But I thought it was really great. I believe it was someone at change.org or someone via change.org or someone that change.org got in touch with. They put together this incredible thing, which is if you go to the link in my Instagram bio right now, you click on that link from your phone, you put in your phone number, and then you push a button, and it will automatically send you to Mitch McConnell's office. You leave a message or speak to a person, push star when you're done, automatically redirects you to Rand Paul's office, automatically redirects you to, I'm forgetting the other Democrat officials, and then the district attorney. So boom, 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 you can leave messages or talk to the people and demand that those officers are arrested. I just thought that was a great thing, because that's something that I think people get overwhelmed with information, or this number, that number, where to go. So I thought that was very cool. And for all the phone phobic people like myself, I only spoke to one real person, and they were very polite. The other ones were messages. Does anyone else get weird about phone? I know I do a show from my living room, but I feel very weird about it. I don't like it.
I get more weird talking with people I know on the phone than people I don't know, because I don't. Than Rand Paul. I wouldn't have a problem, I don't think, talking to. Well, again,
a stranger at an official's office.
I'm good friends with the demons, so I feel like
you don't mind talking to other demons like Rand Paul, which by the way, when I was a couple hours after I made the phone calls, again, visit the link in my bio if you're just tuning in on how you can demand that the 3 officers that murdered Breonna Taylor are arrested. But I realized a couple hours after I hung up that I addressed in my message I left, I called Rand Paul Mr. Rand instead of Mr. Paul.
That's perfect.
What kind of a fucking last name is Paul? His name should be Paul Rand.
Right.
I'm gonna call back and leave a message about that.
You should.
Man.
I actually have something else delightful.
This
weirdly.
is great. Let's talk about it. This thing won't stay in my ear. Gosh,
so
keep going.
a couple days ago, and I think this was between last episode and this episode. I know we didn't talk about it. Can we talk about for a second the K-pop stands? Have you heard about this?
No. Oh wait, yes, I think I do know about it. But talk about it. I think I do know a little bit about it.
So in a oafish and terrible and tone deaf and downright evil turn, various opposition groups started trying to get the hashtag trending of White Lives Matter. And then something miraculous happened. So do you know what a stan is?
Yes.
Should we tell everyone
Yes.
who doesn't know what a stan is?
A stan is basically like a super fan, like if you stan something,
Like a
you
fanatic.
like support it, and
If you were
you're a
born
fanatic
in the
about it.
80s or this. Yeah.
So K-pop is obviously something that has a ton of stans, Korean
Right.
pop music. All of the main Korean pop bands and their fans just started tagging all of their own posts with White Lives Matter. So all you could get, and the only reason that it trended
Was
was
the K-pop
that
stans
it was
overtook
just
it?
sending K-pop music videos across
That's
everything.
amazing. So they overran the White Lives.
They overran.
Matter hashtag.
They
Incredible.
overran people trying to do something terrible and trolled those people doing something
amazing.
terrible. It's actually, I mean, it's disruption.
It's amazing.
Like it's social disruption for the good of
It's
the
the
cause.
good rebellion
I
in
love
Star
that.
Wars around
Right.
the planet.
Yeah,
Earth.
yeah.
Right.
I just saw. I mean, it was very nice to see it how easily just these assholes were trounced by a sea of K-pop
I love that.
stans.
Well, wait, as long as you brought that up, I was going to save this for the end before we dip into some other stuff that's maybe on a little bit more serious tip. Oh, wait, why am I searching through my script? I do this. Here's another delightful thing. Nicole Byer of Girl Code
Yep.
I mean, Nailed It is how everyone knows her, but we think of her from Girl Code because that's how Matt Krol and I know her. But she had a really delightful video of her at the protest, and she put the caption, "Black Lives Matter, even if you don't have rhythm. The protest today was very peaceful. I showed up because the subject matter is serious, but I'm complex. So this is sort of like serious situation she was in, but she was bringing some levity."
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
I mean, come on, that's very Nicole. I'm like, I love that. I
Right.
love
That's
that
very
energy
Nicole.
she's bringing. Yeah,
That's what
They're
does-
just
She
like,
did she was doing some great posts too on Twitter when she sort of began, or maybe it was after she began talking about this, about how she wants to educate white children, basically,
interesting.
because Nailed It, apparently kids
yes,
love
yes.
Nailed It.
Yes.
So she wanted to basically speak directly and have parents read her tweet or whatever directly to kids
Yeah.
about what's going
Yeah.
on, because she's the nice lady from the cake show or the baking show or whatever it
Someone said, I still can't get this damn thing to stay in my ears. Yeah, someone commented something to the effect of I'm just gonna keep my head down and watch Nailed It with my kids, and
That's what it
I'm
was.
paraphrasing, I'm sure, so you should look this up on Nicole Byer's Instagram and follow her. But yeah, and she was like, "Hi, don't do that. I'll literally write you how you can talk to your kids about racism. I'll do the work for you, just
Yeah.
like all black people have been doing for eternity, doing the work for us white people of solving racism when it's our problem to solve." So yeah, it was incredible. So everyone should go look at Nicole Byer. Should we also then, we have a couple more people joining us. If you missed last week, and especially I'm glad my dad is watching because this is also directed towards him. As a Penn State family, and my dad's a huge Penn State person, if you missed last week, at the very end of the show, so I don't know, not everyone stuck around to the end of the show, I showed some clips highlighting the way the media portrays white people celebrating sporting events / being upset about stupid stuff, and how the media portrays that versus how the media was portraying people protesting for their lives, right? So
Yes.
if you missed, I made a comparison. I used Penn State students rioting when Joe Paterno was fired as one of my comparisons, and how the media
Sure.
portrayed that versus how they portray the protests for racial justice. And I want to make a public apology to Joe Paterno and my dad, because I spoke in broad terms. I didn't have all my research. I was a little bit, exaggerating to sort of prove my point. And I said Joe Paterno covered up child rape. And listen, I'll charge the audience to do their own research, but he did report it to the school. And then the school ignored it and didn't do anything about it. So Joe Paterno was not actively covering it up. He did do his part and report it, but I think there's also some evidence that shows no one can know, no one but Joe Paterno is Joe Paterno, and only he knows if he knew things before that he maybe should have reported before, or like he also could have followed up with the school, right? But I'm sorry, Joe Paterno, for speaking in broad terms, and I'm also going to use that as an excuse to re-show this clip if you missed it last week. So you've all seen the way people are reacting to the protest, and Target! Right. Target! That's my favorite Target! So here's...
Were they? Oh, man.
How...
Okay. I was going to make a very...
Sawyer introduced a clip of people rioting for Joe Paterno being fired. Here we go.
There is a request for calm on the campus of Penn State after loyal students erupted in outrage over the firing of Joe Paterno, their legendary football coach, who, by the way, was fired over the phone
we might have lost audio.
after 45 years.
Oh, we lost audio, Macro?
Well, I couldn't hear I heard the clip start. I don't know if chat heard the clip or not.
Did you hear the clip? Hold on. Everyone at home, if the clip goes out, let us know. We're going to give it one more shot.
There is a request for calm on the campus of Penn State after loyal students erupted in outrage over the firing of Joe Paterno, their legendary football coach, who, by the way, was fired over the phone after 45 years at the helm. The cause, that sexual abuse scandal involving 8 young boys and one of Paterno's top coaches.
Loyal students. Let me show you what these loyal students were doing. Just some loyal students. Because Joe was fired over the phone. So it's warranted. She had to specifically point out that Joe was fired over the phone because it was warranted. That was exciting. All right, everyone at home heard that, right?
So they didn't use a fake
Matt Krol, did you hear that?
Everyone at home heard it. No, I did not, but that's okay.
So weird.
They're more
How
important.
did you not hear it and we heard it?
I don't know.
Guys, we have a fun little juggling of tech issues we do here where there can never be everyone's on equal footing in terms of like audio and video. Someone always has to be the odd person out, and it was us not hearing the clips, and now I guess I just transferred it to you, Matt Krol. Sorry. You're the lucky one this week who doesn't get to hear the clips. But if you guys at home, everybody, let me know if you hear the clips. But point being, I'm so sorry, Joe Paterno, that I misspoke about you last week. You did not cover up child rape, but we also don't know how much you did to stop it. Anywho, here we go. This isn't about Joe Paterno or about the Eagles fans rioting.
We saw those big.
Look at them. They're just excited because their football team won. Okay, here's what I want to talk about this week. If you guys missed this, please buckle up for a ride. I think we've all seen it, right? So let's talk about defund the police, because this is something that's been a big topic of conversation since we talked with you guys last Wednesday. We've been seeing a lot of defund the police hashtags, which I think, as Jared Freed put it on Twitter, friend of the show, Jared Freed. He has a podcast, but he put on Twitter, you guys think that the people who are saying all lives matter are going to get defund the police? Their brains are like, psh, but obviously it doesn't just mean we live in, a society without law. Clearly, those of us with reason realize that defund the police means just putting that money into other crisis intervention segments, like investing in social services, investing in communities, making sure people...
like firefighters or EMTs.
Correct.
There's different emergencies for different people.
Can you imagine?
I don't quite...
Can you imagine?
I don't understand.
You know what's interesting about the enormous pushback on this? It's something that police and police unions have been pushing for quite some time. They themselves have said that they do too much, that they are not the people that should be called for various things, but everyone just has to use the police because it's the one thing that's not the EMTs or the fire department. Yeah. Outside of all of this other stuff, this movement would actually give them something that they want.
That exactly, and I think even the people who were calling for it at the time, now just by virtue of the fact that they want to, hang on with their teeth to their whiteness and the power of white supremacy. Now suddenly, you see some of those same police officers. They don't want it like in this, it hurts them still somehow like under this context. But you are 100% right, Matt Krol. This is, I don't think it's ever been a secret that police officers are just overextended, right? So it's like all this is people are calling for is to take some of the burden off of them, which will be better for everyone, which is interest convergence, which shout out to Shanali Bomick, friend of the show. We attended an amazing Zoom that she put together, and she got Tim Wise, who's an incredible lecturer, racial justice advocate. Look up Tim Wise if you don't know him. So he spoke, and we talked about interest convergence and sort of the idea of like, even if someone is evil and wants to be a racist and will never not be a racist, and in their heart of hearts they'll never find empathy, how can we reach those people in terms they'll understand, which is why convincing them it would be in their interest to, equality would be in their interest. And I think that's sort of an interesting, point to that, right?
It's definitely a technique. You have to appeal to people and meet them where they are.
Right.
But I like to bring up, Tom Morello wrote.
If people don't know Tom.
Rage Against the Machine, the band. We don't negotiate with racists. Same way we don't negotiate with terrorists. The idea that we have to meet, like it's like negotiating with Nazis who believe in the extinction of people. If we're going to negotiate with people that believe in the extinction of people, what are we then doing? If we claim to be in 2020 or have learned anything at all from anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. On that note, if y'all haven't seen this, I can't call it anything other than delightful. So this is basically a police commissioner, police commission public meeting, I guess. Like it was like a meeting with the police commission and the LAPD police commissioner. And they were having sort of like a Zoom, public forum where members of the community could call in and speak with the police commission and the LAPD police commissioner and voice their concerns. And I'm going to play for you. And again, everybody watching, if at any point, that's actually what the issue was. I was thinking that the reason we couldn't hear clips before was because there was an echo, but I think that was what it was. It was because for some reason the audio would drop out for everyone else, even though we could hear it. So if you guys at any point, please be our, tech supervisor here. If we lose audio, just comment and I'll figure something out. But sorry, Matt Krol, maybe you're the one who's going to lose it because I tried something different.
I've heard this though. I would love to hear it again.
Wouldn't we all love to hear it for the rest of our life? All right, so here's a lovely gentleman also named Jeremy Fresh, who called in to speak his mind to the LAPD police commissioner. Let's take a look.
Thank you. Jeremy Fresh, followed by Juan Ramirez.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, yes.
Black Lives Matter, defund the police. I find it disgusting that the LAPD is slaughtering peaceful protesters on the street. I had 2 friends go to the protest in Beverly Hills a couple days ago, and the protest was peaceful until the police showed up with their excessive violent force, shooting rubber bullets and throwing tear gas. Is this what you think of protecting and serving? Because I think it's bullshit. Fuck you, Michael Moore. I refuse to call you an officer or a chief because you don't deserve those titles. You are a disgrace. Suck my dick and choke on it. I yield my time. Fuck you.
Woo! Yes.
I yield my time.
Apparently he practiced and timed himself. There was an interview
with
him.
Oh my God, tell us everything. Wait, also, could you hear that whole clip, Matt Krol?
No.
Okay,
no,
so you are the person who got the short straw, because I think everyone at home heard it. I was listening. Anyways, tell us about Jeremy Fresh. I want to know everything.
Well, no, I mean, basically, he wanted to call in and do exactly what he did, but he also knew the very specific rules, and so he wrote and got his stuff down and practiced it apparently with a clock.
Jeremy Fresh.
And he got it all in, and then he got a little oomph right at the end after he reclaimed his time.
I believe what you just described was doing the work, so doing the work.
Yeah.
I like
Speaking
that.
of anyone, Rachel Cargill, follow Rachel Cargill on Instagram right now and visit the link in my bio. for the easiest way to call all the officials that you need to call to make sure the police officers who murdered Breonna Taylor are arrested, for anyone who's tuning in. All right, let's keep moving. Shall we? Okay, well, listen, I have a lot of notes about like stray thoughts and things we're going to talk about, and we can let the conversation go where it may. But I do want to make sure we at least show one Jane Elliott clip. We were talking about Jane Elliott last week. So, Matt Krol, I think this came up last week. For anyone who's not familiar, and I can't remember, Matt Krol, if you said you were. Jane Elliott is, I mean, she was a school teacher.
Yes.
In the 60s. And she was so moved to, after the day after Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated, she was so, she felt so emotional about it. She felt moved to do an experiment with her students to show them what, her white students, to show them what racism felt like. And so she divided them into brown eyes and blue eyes, and she treated the blue-eyed people like society treats black people. And she, you know, sort of like uplifted the brown-eyed students and, you know, was talked down to the blue-eyed students, et cetera, et cetera. I'm oversimplifying it. But then she's done this experiment over the years with both children and adults. Oh boy, the adults was very, it was hard yet cathartic to watch. But so let me let Jane actually tell you in her own words. And if you don't know Jane Elliott, walk, don't run after this to Google and watch the full clips. But so let's watch some of these and then maybe it can spark conversation. Shall we? Jane Elliott.
I consider this exercise an injection of the live virus of racism. If you've been through this exercise, the next time you see racist behaviors, sexist behaviors, homophobic behaviors, ethnocentric behaviors, ageist behaviors, maybe you will say to yourself, wait a minute, I had that for one morning. I'm never going to allow that to happen in my presence again without responding to it negatively.
And I love how even in that introduction to what the experiment is, she mentions if you know, ever see someone being treated that way, you'll remember that you had that feeling for just a short time. And boy,
and I think
does that ever come out in the experiment. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think what we've also seen is that different groups and people that are not used to it, used to any sort of negative treatment just based on who they are, fall apart. They're like paper people. Like, to a level I didn't know. I mean, look, we all know the term white fragility, like that's the thing, but like, I don't know. It's been beyond what I imagined that like, I mean, I know my own issues, you know, etc. But like, I just look at these other people that are freaking out because there's been 2 weeks of them being criticized for stuff that they do wrong.
The police commissioner or whatever being like, I'm tired of people tarnishing the name of police officers. It's like
for a week.
It's like the girl in Mean Girls when she realizes that Lindsay Lohan's character has been giving her snacks to gain weight instead of lose weight. And she's just like, like running around her apartment. But wait, Matt Krol, that's a great segue that we didn't even plan because I didn't really share with you this week about what we were going to talk about. But that's a great segue into this perfect example of a little snippet of the blue-eyed, brown-eyed Jane Elliott experiment with some students in the 90s. So let's take a look at, I urge you to look up the whole hour-long show on YouTube, but let's just show a little snippet of that white fragility in action.
You still didn't learn anything, did you? Didn't I just say when your hand is up, you are thinking of what you're going to say instead of what's being said? Didn't I just say that?
Yes, you did.
And did you hear that?
Yes, I did.
And did you decide that you were just going to do it your way?
I was.
Wait a minute, you were on a roll there for a minute.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Yes, I did.
Now, since you choose to not listen to others, what do you suppose we're going to do where you're concerned?
No, listen to me.
Thank you very much.
May I finish what I was saying,
No,
please?
because you're still thinking of what you're going to say instead of what I'm saying. Now, getting right along.
I heard what you were saying.
You're doing it
I
again.
understand what you were
You're
saying.
doing it again.
I don't care.
You're doing it
because
again.
It's wrong.
You're
and you
doing it again.
Persecuted her for standing out.
You're doing it again.
Persecuted him for standing out. The only change that ever happens is when people stand out, and I haven't sat back too long.
Martin Luther King Jr. was shot. Are you in any physical danger here? Are you in any physical danger here? Is that girl in any physical danger here? Emmett Till was hanged by his neck after he was beaten almost to death, simply because he made a statement to a white woman.
I'm sorry, Matt Krol, that you couldn't then hear that whole thing. I need to send you these, but
I've seen it. I also found a workaround where if I mute my microphone, I can turn on the audio on my phone.
This is exciting! Okay, so then you can kind of hear
7
it.
seconds later.
Even though it's like 20 seconds behind. But yeah, so talk about white fragility. That girl was being given a piece of fuzz. That girl was being spoken to sternly for an hour.
She also said she referred to being spoken to as persecution.
Yes,
persecution, and also I found that I don't know if there's more, but I think after she walks out, and this is a group experiment, she comes back in as if she didn't walk out on the entire group. And if we know anything about politeness and group activity or what it is to be in a human situation with other people, that would, I think, be not polite or rude. But I think...
what, she tried to pull a Costanza?
Yeah.
She tried to pull.
Yeah. Exactly. But to be able to even do that, when you don't see the other students, they're just like, what are you even...
Yeah.
It's the audacity, I think.
Yes.
It's impressive.
And Jane calls it out. That's it. Jane is just so no nonsense. Jane, you always say, Jane does not have time.
And the point is...
She's just like...
She brought up, Emmett Till was, as a 14-year-old boy, was hanged as a brutal murder, and there's pictures of it you can look at, because they had an open... The reason we have open caskets that we had for George Floyd was so that we could look at the body, and we used to do it to see the brutality of the beatings and the lynchings, so that you could see the horror. The reason Emmett Till's brave mother had press at the funeral was so America could see what happened to her son. Years later, the woman who claimed that he whistled at her, which was his crime, punishable by death, Emmett Till, admitted that she lied.
Yep.
So that's what we're... And that girl was persecuted, so I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, but that girl was clearly persecuted.
Yeah.
It's the same.
Well, there's an interesting thing too, right? So she's using in the clip later on, I guess she uses the term being persecuted. So granted, she's definitely not using it correctly, but she knows the power that word might have, and therefore is using it. So therefore, kind of roughly understands the goal of saying that.
Yes.
There's you can't be... people are, and I guess this is true that people are willfully ignorant, but you can't stand on that sort of argument at all, because you can't be dumb and stupid at the same time. You can be selective in what you want to say and believe, but it's you're either informed or you're ignorant, and that's sort of a weird... Absolutely. I don't know. It's an odd thing.
I also just realized the air conditioner's on. No one cares though, right? What are we doing? I do this show in my living room. Yes, absolutely. And I think that's also a good segue into some of the other stuff that I had for us to keep talking about today. But let me just wrap up Jane Elliott, or not wrap up. We can talk about Jane Elliott forever. I would love it. But here's just a little her on Oprah in the 90s, 1992. Right around the LA riots, shutting down a white man who's upset because his daughter's in an interracial relationship. Let's go.
That's the problem you're having, the trouble you're having with your daughter, because you have those green eyes and you aren't as smart as brown-eyed people. Now, watch this boy's reaction. He goes, "Excuse me, do you think he's a little angry?" That fast. You see, white folks are really super sensitive.
White folks are really, I love that so much. I downloaded I cut just that little clip, and I did post it a couple times on comments on on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's just a great, you can't,
it just says
white people are really, really sensitive. It's so satisfying too, hearing it come from someone who looks like Jane Elliott, because she looks like, your white supremacist grandma. Yeah. And then she just comes at you with the most opposite energy. This guy did this. That's all he could think to do.
He probably has a
He's
job.
He's a grown adult. Mm-hmm. This is all he can muster.
Yeah.
It just...
But only at the conversation or concept of race.
Right.
Does that inner child of the petulance and the uncontrollable anger response to it is hilarious.
Right.
And it's so funny because Jane's frustration, she's been doing it for 50 years.
Right.
It's like every time she does it, the reaction's the same. She gets death threats for what? For eye color tests that they agree to. It's just very interesting how that
She
works.
said that a 70-something-year-old man that she had done the experiment with, it was like this shortened version of the experiment that only lasted 15 or 30 minutes or something. Decades ago.
That's right.
She like somehow happenstance ran into him in like a bar or something years later, and he was like, "I'll never forget what you did to me."
Yeah.
What? All right, moving on. Unless we have anything else we want to say about Jane Elliott. I mean, I could talk forever. I just wanted to share that with everybody. If you haven't looked up Jane Elliott yet. Okay, so I had this prep last week because I thought it was, well, I mean, it's very much the tip of the iceberg of one small piece of the white supremacy pie, right? That is the issue that we now find ourselves in the just white supremacy that this nation was founded on. And part of that is the way, the fact that we're not taught any Black history in schools, / also really taught like a warped view of history, right? I mean, like... It's
a Cliff's Notes, but purposefully so.
It's super Cliff Notey. In fact, I don't even know if people who watch this show know what I do for a living. I am a showrunner and a narrator of a YouTube channel that's predominantly history focused. And through my times working there, I have been incredibly just shocked at the amount I have learned and the amount I did not learn in school. And it constantly boggles my mind to the point where the entirety of the system, and I think I said this did I talk about the Pledge of Allegiance last week? I can't remember what I say where.
But go on.
But I mean, the Pledge of Allegiance is indoctrination.
Right.
The U.S. education system standardized, and I'm not talking about individual teachers because Jane was a teacher. Like there's plenty of good teachers. I mean, they don't have the resources to do anything, but that's a different thing. Well, I mean, that's the truth. And actually, Tash, you might have said this too. The system didn't fail because the system did exactly what the system was designed to do.
Exactly. That was my thing. Is it's a Cliff's Notes on purpose, and I've been having this discussion all day that the reason we now find Muhammad Ali and Martin Luther King like teddy bears is because they're dead. Muhammad Ali, we didn't like him until he had Parkinson's. We destroyed his career as a country when he wanted to change his name and not go to war. Martin Luther King, America hated him before he was assassinated by the United States government, which they admitted in court. So what I loved the last couple of weeks was seeing people post and telling people how to protest using Martin Luther King's words, talking about nonviolence as if he wasn't beaten, as if he wasn't shot in the head and assassinated on purpose. So we're teaching these kids to give them a warm blanket to feel like these problems are solved so that they don't do anything. And that's why we're here in 2020, because it worked perfectly.
And I really do. I mean, truly, I feel like that I relate to that exact. I felt like that's exact sentiment I remember being evoked in me when we learned about Martin Luther King Jr. In school. And it's like, oh, good. And then look, and then in the 60s we figured it out. I mean, and you have this, it's like at that time you still have this vague sense of like when you're that age. I mean, I'm sure, I learned about Martin Luther King at least for the first time in elementary school, right? I mean, you learn about that sort of stuff at a young age and you feel like, oh good, we did it.
They also teach it to you, once or maybe twice at young ages when you aren't really like, so there's the plan, but half of that plan is knowing that you're young enough to take a little bit of it, but not like want to dig deeper because you're a little
that's
kid.
such a
And
good
then
point.
when it comes up again, you're kind of like, oh, I kind of know that. I mean,
such a good point.
you contrast that with the way that the German education system talks about World War II. They talk about what Nazi in detail in the 4th fucking grade.
Yeah.
Because it's necessary.
You got to do it. You have to.
And the fact that we didn't is exactly one of the myriad of reasons why we are here right now.
Yes.
And speaking of, and shout out to Riley at the Club Rye, and also shout out to DJ Rye's. Did we talk about this on the show? I should have pulled down a little clip of it. You played on DJ Rye's remix of a Drake song.
Oh, I did.
got a post about it. Anyways, follow at the Club Rye. Also, she does a show right before this show at 8:30
Wind
Eastern
Down
Standard
Wednesdays.
Time. Wind on Wednesdays. She does a show like most nights a week, so just go follow at the Club Ride. But she brings up a great point. She's listing off all the things in the comments that we don't. I love how also I on the show read out the comments as if everyone's not looking at them. Anyways, if you guys were looking at the same screen I was, but Rye, I wanted to acknowledge you because this is a great segue. This is a couple of things I wanted to bring up. So I had this prep last week, and I wanted to go through it. I mean, I'm just going to read it at you because I just think it's all very interesting. And it's actually from a white woman, a white writer at Claire Willett. And I just have some of the tweets pulled up so you don't have to stare at our faces the whole time, and you can look at the tweets and read them also at your own leisure. But I did not know. I knew maybe 20% of what Claire wrote in this Twitter thread about COINTELPRO and Fred Hampton. I had never heard of Fred Hampton. And her point in posting this was, as a white woman, she's like, neither did I. And so this is for, she's out there trying to do the work of like, let me get everybody, other white people turned on to like, you think you heard of like this or that you didn't know about Black history, but like, you don't even know the half of it, of the stuff they didn't tell us. So let me educate anyone who doesn't know, or if you just want a refresher on COINTELPRO, J. Edgar Hoover, and Fred Hampton. Let's go. So, COINTELPRO stands for Counterintelligence Program. It was a secret FBI project created by J. Edgar Hoover designed to spy on, infiltrate, and discredit every progressive activist movement with a particular emphasis for Black civil rights leaders, especially the Panthers. And can we just also talk about, the Black Panthers? Who would want to hurt these guys?
Thank you. The swag.
I want to hang, what?
They're cool.
Black Panthers for president every day of my life. Okay, so basically, COINTELPRO had 3 core goals with the Black Panthers: to discredit racial leaders in their own communities by falsely painting them as snitches or sellouts, spreading rumors that they were collaborating with the FBI or law enforcement so their own people would not trust them, to force the rift between different coalitions with the same values, whether between, say, a very liberal Black civil rights organization versus a more centrist one, or between a Black activist group or a Latinx one, to sow chaos and prevent cooperation amongst those groups, right? So basically, 3, the most relevant to our current national conversation, Tree, the framework in which the vast majority of white people saw not just the Panthers, but the entire Black civil rights movement as a violent, disruptive threat that needed constant police control. Wow.
I mean,
wow, that sounds not at all familiar at all to what's
straight
happening
up,
nationally.
again, taught in rural New Hampshire, but the Black Panthers were like kind of taught as the unsuccessful antithesis to Martin Luther King.
Yes.
Right.
And they were unsuccessful, quote unquote, due to being more violent.
Right.
Is kind of the gist of it.
Well,
that I remember. And it's not like they spent a lot of time on it.
Well, and that's what they want us to believe, because basically, so that comes up. Also, you should talk about how you're related to one of the founding members, or one of the, maybe not founding, well, you tell the story.
So my father's cousin is Kathleen Cleaver, who was
Kathleen Cleaver.
married to Eldridge Cleaver, who was one of the founding members of the Black Panther Party. And it's just, an honor that that's in the family. But it's funny because a lot of, and I think back about it, and it's like, it's not as if they wanted to do it. It's not as if they want to do that work for fun, or they get paid a lot of money. It's literally for survival, and I find it very funny that we still live in a paradigm where we can watch white protesters carry guns and spit in police's faces, and yet when black people are just saying their lives matter, they want to survive, they're viewed as violent, or they're, animal savages, etc. And that narrative has never changed.
Right.
We're still saying the same things, and it's interesting to me.
Well, and especially I didn't realize, and the woman Claire, who's right, actually, let me pull it. I was reading it off of there, but let me read it off of here, and I'll stop. Let me just kind of try to, because there's a lot of text. But basically, what her point is that one of the things the Black Panthers did, amongst many things they did and services they provided, was providing breakfast, free breakfast to kids. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I certainly didn't learn that. I mean, it's the vague, and I think she even puts it in one of her tweets. She said something to the effect of if you are like me, a white person in America, you probably grew up like she did, having a vague notion of the Black Panthers are just vaguely violent and dangerous. It's no, they actually were only armed as a form of defense amongst the agitation by the police officers towards them.
Which they admit.
Exactly. So, and the only reason we know that these things, that getting back to COINTELPRO, if I'm even pronouncing it right, because I had literally never heard of it. Hello, I have a college education. The only reason we know that these things were carefully crafted tactics is that in 1971, a group of white activists broke into the FBI field office in Pennsylvania, stole a bunch of documents, and revealed the existence of the then secret COINTELPRO operation to the public, crafted by J. Edgar Hoover. But the thing about human brains, Claire says, is that when you believe something that is true for so long, it's hard to receive or absorb even the most concrete facts in opposition to your idea, because it still feels true. Even when faced with facts, it feels true. And again, it's still relevant today.
Yeah. That's an evolutionary holdover.
Yeah.
The reason why human beings, why it's hard to burn away or change an actual, a belief structure, is back when we were in the wilderness, or our great ancestors, that was you learn that snake is going to kill you. If that snake bites you, you're dead. Your brother got bit by a snake, they're dead.
Right.
So it's hardwired. You look at the negativity and negative reactions,
right? Yeah, right.
Are hardwired, and that is a leftover thing from our sort of past that makes it so if we're even getting into something as trivial as an argument about a movie or as important as racial equality, people
it's
just
I grew up in my family, we don't like Back to the Future. Something, exactly. I get your point of it's hardwired into us, which I mean,
also,
if you don't like Back to the Future, I don't know why you're watching
and that's not how time travel works. But the other bit too, this is sort of an antithesis. I don't know. I'm going to drop that word. I said it wrong. The Black Panthers were armed, right? That made me think of Walmart's current and new policy of no longer selling firearms during this time, or they decided not to in certain places or something like that. I'll have to look it up. Yeah.
They just recently? Wow. Walmart starts.
I could have sworn, and again, I'll look it up right now, so I'm not talking out of my ass. Walmart.
We're just gonna do it for the time being.
Yeah, just for the time being. While it's not fashionable.
Well, just while black people are upset.
We're just gonna exactly.
Yeah.
They didn't stop selling firearms during the
Walmart.
time when they
hold
shot
on.
John Crawford III.
At Walmart.
That's his name, right?
Mm-hmm. John Crawford III.
Which, if you didn't know, that is a black man who went to Walmart and just picked up, while talking to the mother of his child on the phone,
so maybe,
and got shot by cops because someone said there's a armed black man in the store, and it was just an unloaded BB gun. Mm-hmm. Okay. Go on, Mackerel.
Let's see. Oh, so they're actively, let's see, to avoid looters. Excuse me.
Oh my God!
They're removing guns from the sales floor.
Wow.
You can still buy a gun, and I was wondering,
from being shot by officers in the stores.
I was wondering
because the people protesting for racial justice.
I was wondering where our good friends at the NRA were when that was happening. It's actually, you can still buy them. Now
Oh,
it's
thank
just up
goodness.
to Walmart to decide whether or not you get one.
And what's great, because that's
Exciting.
the famously black-owned Walmart, is it? The Walton, the Black Waltons family, was
Yes,
it?
yes.
Interesting that they don't want to sell.
Okay, wait. Before we go down too far down this rabbit hole, because so we talked about COINTELPRO and how basically everything, I mean, I forget if is this a Tash Neal quote or were you quoting someone else? I mean, you've been saying, like, if you're not racist, you weren't a good student. Like,
Jane Elliott said that.
Jane Elliott said that. There you go. So, if you aren't racist, you were not paying attention in school. Like, every way we are now is by design. And as I feel like I've been saying all the time lately, like, we are in a cult of whiteness, and we have to actively deprogram. And I think that's an interesting way to frame the reaction you see by some people, right? Because it's like they're still in the cult. That's not an excuse. It's like, but that's the psychology. Like, they're still in the cult. They're just so triggered, and they're so like, I can't accept another reality. But point being, I want to talk then about, before we wrap up COINTELPRO and the design of white supremacy, Fred Hampton, a hero that most of us have never heard of. So basically, it brings us to Fred Hampton, going back to Claire Willett on Twitter. She says, Fred Hampton was an extraordinary young person. He really wanted to play for the Yankees when he grew up. Instead, he decided to go to school to study law. And he was a youth organizer for the NAACP in Chicago, wildly charismatic speaker. And basically, I'm going to paraphrase a little bit just because we're approaching our time. But basically, Fred Hampton was incredible, and he was, really uniting all these other parties, like the Latin Kings, right. So he was just adept at bringing together different groups of people, which obviously was a threat to white supremacy and J. Edgar Hoover and our democracy as we knew it. We couldn't let them, right? J. Edgar Hoover couldn't let them, they can't gain power by combining forces. So Fred Hampton, do your own research, please. I'm just like drinking rum and Crystal Light on my couch. Don't take me as an authority. But the short and long of it is, if you've never heard of Fred Hampton, shamefully I had not before Claire Willett tweeted about him, he was murdered by the police and the FBI, actually, I think it was, and they claimed that the Black Panthers fired 200 shots, where in fact they had fired none other than, or maybe a few offensively, because the police had, basically just unloaded on Fred Hampton.
Defensively, then.
Defensively, thank you. Yeah, so
I'd also
shout out to Fred
recommend
Hampton.
looking up the Google image his house and what they did to his house. They not only assassinated him, they killed a lot of innocent people. And in the direct text that the FBI themselves wrote, their whole plan is, if you can stop marginalized people from coming together, then we can keep this bubble going where people can pretend racism doesn't exist.
And boy howdy, I suppose it worked, didn't it?
Yay.
The interesting part too is it worked basically until now, but the thing that I think when these tactics were developed and they are still being used, the thing that they did not account for is it's so funny, because what is the tool that is going to help sort of dismantle this in general? The internet, okay?
Sure.
Because it can, right? But why does the internet exist in such a way? Capitalism. It's a weird thing that the two plans that were going forward to
the very plan
oppress,
which they architected is the very which, I see what you're saying.
Because there's a balance that they had to strike back and forth, and now, I don't know, that's a loaded and larger thing than I am qualified to talk about. But it's interesting, and but the thing, this is what gets me about this entirety of the old playbook still being at use. They don't have it doesn't, that playbook, this evil playbook doesn't even make fucking sense anymore.
You just said it.
Evil playbook
it doesn't work. And thank fucking God that it doesn't work. But at this point, you're just delaying the inevitable.
Right.
and like just fuck it. That's what I think gets me because it's not like, I mean, I think we've proven through the myriad of the way that the information's been shared and the way that it's so easy to now contact the people in power and the way that the images of all of this horrible police brutality has been broadcast to the entire world.
Right.
Like, they can't. Like, they're not good at it. Like, they're like, they can't, like, it's not like the FBI doing secret stuff like you just talked about, Chelsea, like, that then people had to break into an office. Like, they're just bad at being sneaky now.
Yeah, well, I mean,
and
white supremacist president is just, like, tweeting insanity. Like, it's just completely, but it's like, that's even what's
the other
scarier
side
about it at this point. It's like that, it's just, they're not even pretending anymore. No. And people are still...
It's a chip away.
In the call. Like we talked about, people are still in the call. So before we go, because we're about to get cut off in a little bit, you guys, and I appreciate everyone tuning in. And shout out to Riley at the Club Rye, who brought up also, I had some stuff prepped, but we're about to get cut off by Instagram. So we can talk about it next time, about the Tulsa Massacre. Which required watching before next week. Watch The Watchmen on HBO. Watch Jane Elliott on YouTube. Seneca Village.
We're doing actually.
What's that?
On extra history in I think 3 weeks because animation takes a long time. Stephen Van Patten, your friend Chelsea and mine, wrote an amazing history episode.
The person who coined the term Ku Klux Karen.
Yes. He wrote a phenomenal episode on Tulsa and on the burning of Black Wall Street, and that will be out soon too. Awesome. So I'll share that when it's there. Yeah.
Can't wait to see that.
So yeah, and there's a girl. I'm also look up at Hannah-Harpist on TikTok because she's out here doing the work, and so that she'll show up on people's feeds. She's still doing like vague TikTok dances, but then saying, relating Black history while she does that.
Central Park actually used to be a town called Seneca Village that was founded by freed African-American slaves.
So just go watch at Hannah-Harpist. I was going to play it. We can do it next time. But so she's talking about Seneca Village. I mean, it's just like, it's so fantastic. But anyways, here, you guys, thanks for tuning in. And I'm just going to leave you. Look, this is What a Delight. And I think we talked about important stuff. We'll talk more next week, every week at 9 p.m. And I'm just going to leave you with something that Tash sent to me that we didn't get to last time, but you were laughing, like crying in the other room. And I'm like, what are you watching? And this is what he was watching. So I'm going to leave you guys with this until Instagram cuts us off. All right? Thanks to Matt Krol. Thanks to Tash Neal.
Thanks,
we'll see
Tash.
you guys next time. I'm going to leave you guys with this. Keep fighting the power. Click the link in my bio to make calls to get the police officers arrested who murdered Breonna Taylor. And I leave you with a salsa dancing dog. Good night.
I forgot about that.
Mira cómo goza, mamita, ponte a bailar nuestro sabor. Mira cómo goza, mamita, ponte a bailar nuestro sabor. Mira cómo goza, mamita, ponte a bailar nuestro sabor. Mira cómo goza, mamita, ponte a bailar nuestro sabor.
That dog should be president.
That dog can dance.
Look at him go! The spinning? Are you kidding me?
Swag levels.
Are you kidding me? A dip? You can't make this stuff up! Alright, we're off. Thanks, Matt Krol. Oh, Zoe! That's Zoe!
Zoe.
We were